Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the Burgh Breakdown. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, and we're talking all things Pittsburgh Steelers football here on episode 10. It was a great night for football in southwestern Pennsylvania. I enjoyed it alongside the beach in North Reddington, Florida, and let me tell you, there's nothing better than kicking back, listening to the waves of the ocean, and watching some Pittsburgh Steelers football, and it helps when the Steelers play a really good game like they did on Thursday night against the Green Bay Packers to kick off their preseason slate. It was Mike McCarthy's big night, the first time he got to walk out onto that field at Acrisure Stadium and be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the team responded in kind. 28-9 victory over the Green Bay Packers, and to me, the biggest storyline, maybe the only storyline that we should be talking about coming out of that game, is how well the rookies played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll go through a couple of them here, but it was an all-out showcase of the 2026 draft class for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to start on the defensive side of things. I know a lot of people have come out of that game talking about Drew Allar, and we will get to Drew Allar, I promise you that. But I want to start on the defensive side of the ball with a player that has just quickly started making his name known around the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base, and that is safety Robert Spears-Jennings. The 2026 seventh-round pick out of Oklahoma was starting to create a couple of headlines here and there out in Latrobe, and he translated that over to the playing field at Acrisure Stadium with a great performance in the opening preseason game. A couple of nice plays against, and most importantly, better competition, right? He was playing out there with the ones at times on Thursday night. He was making his name known. He's definitely making a push to not just make the lineup, but potentially be the Steelers' number 3 safety behind Deshaun Elliott and Jaquan Brisker. He's a guy who all of a sudden looks like he is one of the brightest young players, the brightest shining stars of this entire preseason. Again, it's only preseason game 1, and I think we could put that caveat in front of basically everything we talk about today because it is just the preseason. We've learned that lesson time and time again. You don't want to overreact, but we only have what we've seen, and what we've seen is some very solid play from Robert Spears-Jennings. 3 solo tackles, including an impressive tackle for loss in Thursday's victory, and a guy that has certainly made his name known and has certainly planted his flag as someone who we should all be expecting to make the 53-man roster. Where it goes from there, who knows? But he certainly made a great first impression on Thursday night. The second group of rookies I want to talk about are the wide receivers. A guy that not many people have talked about, mainly because, well, he is a wide receiver. However, he's mainly going to be a kick returner, is Caden Weegan. And I understand what he had was one huge play. And that was late in the game against third or fourth stringers coming out for the Green Bay Packers. But the one thing we knew about Caden Weegan is that he has a lot of open field prowess. That's the reason the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted a kick returner, is to have somebody who's able to turn decent plays into massive splash plays. And that's what we saw on Thursday night. Caden Weegan, a 74-yard reception in the third quarter to really get the ball rolling for the Drew Allar version of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And that's really all I needed to see from Caden Weegan. If you asked me going into Thursday night, what do I want to see from the Steelers rookie return man? I just want to see in any capacity that he has that open field prowess at the next level. And again, it was late in the game. It's preseason game 1, so everything is taken with a grain of salt. But it's good to know that, hey, that open field prowess is already on display. It's better than the alternative, right, of him just being boxed up the entire game. So excited to see where this season takes him, but it was nice to get a little bit of a preview of what could be this season for Caden Weegan. On a more exciting level, Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard looked every bit of the guy that people have been talking up since the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted him out of Alabama. 4 receptions, 51 yards, had a nice yak play, 25 yards, able to get away from a couple of tacklers of the Green Bay Packers and really get that Steelers offense on a roll, because the first drive, not so great under Mason Rudolph. Second drive, thanks to Jeremy Bernard, started to take off a little bit. And all of a sudden, we talked about this earlier in the week with Noah Strackbine. All of a sudden, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't only have a good receiver here or a good receiver there, they have a good receiver room. They have some depth at that wide receiver room. We saw Roman Wilson make a nice play in this game, and then we saw Jeremy Bernard have a really, really solid first half in his preseason debut. You add on the fact that we had DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr., not only that, but the Steelers seemingly going to use tight ends a little bit more. We'll talk about Robert Tonyan a little bit later, but it feels like the Steelers' passing game is going to be as dangerous as it has been probably since the Killer Bee era. I don't know if it's ever going to be quite that, right? That is Ben Roethlisberger at the height of his powers. That is Antonio Brown at the height of his powers. That is, Martavis Bryant being an absolute alien. So I don't know if they'll quite get to that level, but this is going to be a more NFL-ready passing game than it has been in the past half decade at least, right? The Steelers have been ground and pound. We're going to lean on the run for a long time. It's nice to know that they might be able to be pass first for the first time in a very long time. And a big reason for that is quarterback play. Yeah, I expect they're going to get some pretty good quarterback play out of the only QB we didn't see on Thursday in Aaron Rodgers. But the quarterbacks we did see, specifically the young ones, showed out and had themselves a great showcase. Let's start with the rookie, because that's the theme of this entire episode, Drew Allar. It's hard to make a better first impression than what we saw from Drew Allar on Thursday night. 10 of 13, 153 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He ran away with things in the second half of this one. And I understand. We learned our lesson from Kenny Pickett and George Pickens in the 2023 preseason. You don't take preseason quarterback play as gospel. You shouldn't, and I won't. But the one thing I will do is say he went out there and he did everything you could have wanted him to do. Now, that has to continue, and that has to build, and I'd like to see him at some point this preseason. We probably won't, but I'd like to see him at some point this preseason, maybe even start a game to go up against some better talent. Because what we saw on Thursday night was Drew Allar absolutely dice up the equivalent to FAU in week 0 of the college football season. But it's still a good sign, right? Everybody had been talking about, well, he's in Mike McCarthy's quarterback school. What's that going to do for him? What's that going to do for the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers? And so far, the returns have been pretty good. Hard to make a better first impression, like I said. Loved seeing Drew Allar go out there and absolutely spin it and carve up maybe the third, maybe the 4th string defense of the Green Bay Packers, but still be able to go out there and do that in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. Because last preseason, we didn't get to see that from the rookie quarterback. However, we did get to see it on Thursday night, and that's Will Howard. I do want to mention Will Howard because as impressed as I was with Drew Allar, and he did it over a longer period of time, I think even more impressive than that was Will Howard's 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. 8 plays, 80 yards in 1 minute and 53 seconds. The only thing that you could say that wasn't good about it is you left enough time on the clock for Green Bay to go down and kick a field goal. But the connection he had with Robert Tonyan, the poise that he had on that 4th and 1, drawing the play action as we have a water plane going past us here at the beach. But the poise that he had on that 4th and 1 to drop back, roll out, and then hit Benny Skoranek for a big gain on a 4th and 1 in a 2-minute drill. That's everything that you've kind of already heard and known about Will Howard, but it's good to see it in a Steelers uniform. The preseason was taken from him last year. So his first opportunity to get out there, to make an impact, to try to chip away at the lead that Mason Rudolph currently has in that QB2 position. It's good to see him go out there and execute in an area that Mike McCarthy has said many times since he became the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and especially since camp began out in Latrobe. 2-minute situations are very important. And Will Howard, in his first opportunity on an NFL field, in an NFL uniform, despite it being preseason, it's good to see that he was able to go out there and execute and do the job. So a huge, huge game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a great way to kick off the season. Does it signify a Super Bowl run for the Pittsburgh Steelers? No. Nobody worth their right mind is going to come out here and tell you that. But to see the rookies, wide receivers, safeties, quarterbacks, be able to come out and perform the way that they did against similar level talent, even if it's Drew Allar doing it against the 3rd stringers or the 4th stringers, that's what he is for Pittsburgh right now. To see him be able to be the best of his pool of talent, that's what's going to give you encouragement that with a little bit more time, with a little bit more tutelage under Mike McCarthy, he's going to be able to progress and hopefully take some steps forward. And the same thing for Will Howard, who is in that QB3 role now. But who knows? In a couple of weeks, you could be looking at Will Howard as your QB2. I'd love to see it. And I think a lot of people in Steelers fan base would like to see it as well. But that's going to do it for this shorter episode of the Burgh Breakdown. We'll be back to full-length episodes, full topic array of topics, I should say, starting next week when I return home, back into the regular studio and away from the relaxation of vacation. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.